final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its mission, to explore strange new worlds, to discover new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Captain's log. While exploring an uncharted star system in the Deneb sector, we received what we think is a message from a distress beacon on Onias 2. We're en route to investigate.
Hello, and welcome back to Let's Play Star Trek Judgement Rites. It has been quite some time. Been busy in real life, but we're back now, so let us start our research for today's mission.
I advise referring to the star map and setting a course for the Onias system, Captain.
No signal from the planet other than the distress beacon, sir.
Alright, so we have Onias 2.
Onias 2, a Class M planet in a system consisting of 3 unformed planets. Because of the high level of micrometeorite activity in the system, it is unusual for a Class M planet to exist. The planet is not inhabited and is not scheduled for colonization.
Interesting. Okay. So...
Onias 2.
Okay, doesn't give us an overview of the system. And, nothing for Deneb. So...
I advise...
I guess all we can do right now, then, is to, set a course. Which, let me just check my map here. Nice. Number 11, the orange star. Okay. Gotta love old-fashioned DRM.
Approaching Onias 2, Captain.
It may be nothing, Captain, but a scan of the planet's atmosphere indicates a high concentration of rare gases trapped in the planet's magnetosphere. Atmospheric disturbances could produce random radio waves.
It wouldn't be the first time, Mr. Spock, but we'll never be able to tell if we don't check it out. After all, to seek out new life and new civilizations is our mission, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
A split infinitive, Captain.
What?
The proper grammatical expression is to go boldly where no man has gone before.
Somehow, I think it loses a little in the translation.
Alright, Mr. Spock, any more sensor readings from the planet?
We are too far from the planet for a detailed sensor probe, Captain.
Alright, Uhura?
Still no word from the planet, sir. Only the distress signal.
Alright, Mr. Sulu? Standard orbit.
Entering standard orbit.
Mr. Spock, sensor readings.
Fascinating, Captain. Sensors indicate only 2 faint life forms. It is difficult to distinguish, given the discharges in the planet's magnetosphere. It is, however, safe to transport to the planet's surface.
Uhura, you picking up anything else?
No signal from the planet other than the distress beacon, sir.
Alright, then let's beam down.
Captain, our sensors will not be particularly useful to you while you're down there, and communications may be erratic, sir.
We'll be fine, Lieutenant. What reason is there to worry?
I'm afraid, Captain, there are plenty of precedents. We'll be here if you need us.
I have no doubt of that.
I have tracked the signal to its source. It is near the life forms. The rest of the planet is quite desolate. No sign of life or technology. The atmosphere is thin, but breathable, and I detect numerous micrometeorite hits.
There are 3 unformed planets in the system. It's no wonder. There are so many micrometeorites. I'm surprised any Class M planet hasn't been pulverized by now.
It is not inconceivable, but it is certainly unusual.
Let's do it, Spock. You, McCoy, and I. Oh, and tell Bones to see if a genetic specialist is available. If there are only 2 life forms, we might be privileged to see life at its earliest stages.
Feels to me as if we've landed on a skeleton after the vultures have picked it clean.
A fascinating analogy, Doctor. Captain, the locus of the distress signal is in that building.
I think the doctor is right. Anything good here died a long time ago. It feels creepy to me.
Thank you for that opinion, Mr. Johns. I'll be certain to use creepy in my log entry about this.
Alright, so let's look around and see what we're dealing with here. It looks like a pretty desolate area. Not exactly what I would call Class M, at least as far as the television series goes, but...
The bright yellow bowl of the sky is unremarkable, except in that you see absolutely no clouds or flying creatures at all. The building, which is old and pitted with micrometeorite strikes, appears ancient, and if built by humanoids, was created for tall individuals. The doorway is unobstructed and appears normal except that it is taller and slightly more narrow than a terrestrial doorway. A natural tower of rocks, apparently volcanic. The dry, dusty red dirt cakes your boots in a thin patina that will be difficult to brush off. This seems pointless.
Alright, sensor readings, Mr. Spock.
The ozone layer is sufficient to allow the world to support life, but the lack of water vapor in the atmosphere makes survival marginal at best. As improbable as it might seem, I am getting multiple life form readings from inside this building.
I was hoping you could tell me more about the building itself, but...
My readings indicate that a force field was here until very recently.
There are no readings, Mr. Spock?
This world is almost completely barren. The only life forms I can detect are nearby. A form of granite, Captain, primarily composed of potash feldspar.
Yes, good old potash feldspar.
The vast majority of the water on this world is trapped within the rocks beneath the ground. It is unlikely that it could be harvested commercially because of the amount of energy it would take to free it. The world is quite normal, though the rocks are rather sparse in silicates. The planet is habitable, but unsuitable for colonization.
Alright, McCoy, what are you picking?
Captain, may I suggest we continue with our mission?
Shut up, Spock. McCoy, what are you reading?
I tell you, Jim, if I could get my operating room as sterile as this planet, I'd be overjoyed. I tell you, Jim,
I think he's just gonna have the same dialogue.
Well, it's certainly not organic. The only organisms that register on my tricorder are us, or in that building. I tell you, Jim...
Okay, so, thoughts, everyone?
A magnificent desolation. Reminds me of a summer I spent on Mars climbing Olympus Mons.
You're kidding, right?
It strikes me as unlikely, Captain, that this world is capable of sustaining the society and culture needed to generate the distress signals we have been receiving from here.
So, in other words, someone not from here made this.
Well, I think I've finally found something I dislike more than having my molecules scrambled. This world.
Bones, stop complaining. There's nothing wrong with this place aside from a little dust.
Forgive me for saying so, sir, but this place is pitiful.
Alright, let's see if there's anything to explore before we go in the building.
An antenna. I wonder what it was meant for.
That's what we're here to find out, Mr. Johns.
That's certainly not natural.
Volcanic in origin, these rocks have been here for a long time. Stars twinkle just a bit through the thin atmosphere. Dr. Leonard McCoy rubs at his eyes as a little dust blows up. Ensign Johns appears bored by the desolate surroundings. James T. Kirk squints against the harsh sunlight on the surface of this world. Spock looks around, apparently at ease in these surroundings.
I will say something I miss from Secret Files is the the little hotspot indicator that you can bring up to see what you can interact with.
Unlike the rocks surrounding it, the sensor array dish looks fairly new. The control mechanism for the array.
Alright. Tricorder readings, Mr. Spock.
These rocks are approximately 1.3 billion years old and are volcanic in origin. These rocks are approximately...
That's all the same.
Nothing
Tell me more about this sensor array.
The array appears to have deployed recently, which explains its lack of damage. The focal point of the dish is aligned approximately 35 degrees above the horizon. This appears to be similar to Federation technology, Captain. Its control principles are similar to the Medaille sensor dish on Vulcan. It has locked the array at a 35-degree angle. Without knowledge of the code control sequence, I cannot adjust it. I also detect that its power core is not functioning. It operates on geothermal energy, tapping into heat from the ground below.
Alright.
Not quite a picnic spot, but it has its charm. What do you think, Bones?
With the thin atmosphere, Sunblock 187 would be nice. You know, Jim, this is not the kind of place to inspire homesickness.
Aside from this sensor array, there is nothing unexpected here.
I hope they didn't pay the landscapers very many credits for this work.
Alright, Mr. Spock, can you do anything with this?
Captain, until power has been returned to these controls, there is nothing I can do.
Well, runs on geothermal energy, so can we heat these rocks up?
The energy level is insufficient, Captain. We cannot generate the energy level needed to provide geothermal energy with hand phasers.
If it's thermal energy you want, Jim, I remember this planet that used a starship's phasers on a microwave setting to heat the surrounding rock to provide temporary power.
An interesting observation, Doctor. We could use the same technique here, but the beam would have to be extremely precise. If we targeted the wrong section, we could melt the rock and destroy the array.
Alright, Mr. Spock, pick out the section.
Captain, although this rock formation does indirectly lead to the thermal core, I suggest finding an area that would allow a more direct transfer of energy. These rocks are approximately 1.3 billion. These rocks. Captain, although this rock formation does indirect... Standard volcanic rock, I would estimate 3.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. This appears to be the most accessible spot to heat the rocks below the ground and generate geothermal energy for the array.
I scanned that, though, and you said it wasn't. Oh my god.
Kirk to Enterprise. Sulu, can you read me?
Sulu here, Captain. How can I help you?
The Enterprise should broadcast a low-level microwave beam at the coordinates I am sending.
We have them, Mr. Spock. Get ready. Stand away from the blast area.
Stand by, ready for weapons position.
Sending microwaves now.
Temperature near the power coupling is rising rapidly. I estimate a below-ground temperature of 345 degrees Kelvin is required to reactivate the array. It is at 320, 330, 335, 340, 345, 350.
Shut off the beam, Mr. Sulu.
Affirmative, Captain.
The array is now drawing power. We were successful.
Excellent. Sensor readings, Mr. Spock?
Nothing unusual about that object, Captain.
Really?
This spot may be warm. Although the possibility of danger is low, I recommend that you keep away from it. The array appears to have deployed recently.
Wait, no, that
power discharge has given it adequate energy to function for 13 days, 7 hours, and 26.8 minutes.
Perfect.
Captain, the parameters of this sensor have been preset. I suggest we do not change them unnecessarily.
Okay.
Not quite a picnic spot, but it had with it.
Alright, that's the same dialogue, so I guess let's move on. Oh, we have another array.
The sun's heat blazes away through the clear sky. Harsh winds and meteorite strikes have sorely weathered these ancient rocks. This seems pointless. Harsh winds and meteor... James T. Kirk runs a strong hand over his smooth chin and studies his surroundings like a general surveying a battlefield. Dr. Leonard McCoy frowns as sweat forms on his upper lip. Spock ignores you as his restless gaze darts from feature to feature of the landscape. Ensign Johns appears unenthused by the surroundings.
Sensor readings, Mr. Spock.
These rocks are approximately 1.3 billion years old. Nothing unusual about that object, Captain.
Alright, tell me about this sensor array.
The array appears to have deployed recently, which explains its lack of damage, though support beneath the base is weak and crumbled. It is aligned to a point approximately 35 degrees above the horizon. Captain, the controls indicate the device is aligned at an angle approximately 35 degrees above the horizon. There appears to be some sort of anomaly in the control program that has misaligned the controls, but my tricorder is unable to determine it. Without a method of determining the proper angle, I am afraid I cannot realign the dish.
Oh, maybe the Enterprise's computer can help.
Scotty, I need a calculation from the main computer.
While I know the computers on the Enterprise aren't quite as good as her engines, I think she'll manage.
I am sending the problem.
Ugh, that was too easy, Mr. Spock. The angle is 32.5 degrees.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
So is there anything else you need, Captain?
Not now, Scotty. Kirk out.
Alright, Mr. Spock, can you put that into the array?
I am now attempting to realign the device to 32.5 degrees. It should now be correctly aligned.
Kinda reminds me of a Klingon penal colony, don't you think?
I think I would just as soon avoid the research needed to make that judgment, sir.
Someone once tried to talk me into buying a retirement villa in a world like this. It was a bargain.
Small wonder that.
This array is clear evidence of an ongoing alien interest in this world.
Someone selling ice water here would make a fortune.
Alright, I think we've done all we can do here, so let's continue onwards. Another array. Alright, let's have a look around.
The arid terrain is composed of lava rocks big and small. It would seem hospitable to a scorpion or a Klingon. The volcanic rocks bear tiny scars from siderite strikes, as very little burns up in the atmosphere here. This seems pointless. James T. Kirk seems not to notice as a little sweat trickles down the side of his face. Dr. Leonard McCoy looks around as if desirous of a soft place to sit down. Spock's gaze darts quickly between features, doubtless cataloging them for a later report. Ensign John's irritated expression suggests frustration or a pebble in his boot. The sensor array's bright disk blossoms on a rock like a metal flower and points toward the distant horizon.
You know what? I don't think we looked at the other arrays. I'll have to go back and do that.
This small computer controls the elevation of the sensor dish.
Mr. Spock, sensor readings if you please.
Nothing unusual about that object, Captain. This rock is a secondary formation produced by the interaction of plates, earthquakes, and volcanism. The appears to have deployed recently, which explains its lack of damage. This array appears focused on a point approximately 35 degrees above the horizon. This appears to be similar to Federation technology, Captain. Its control principles are similar to the Medaille sensor dish on Vulcan. It has locked the array at a 35-degree angle. Without knowledge of the code control sequence, I cannot adjust it.
Alright, so not much more here.
The peacefulness of this planet is a nice change, isn't it, Mr. Spock?
Somewhat like the meditation grounds on Vulcan, Captain.
After our encounter with the Alasani, the Vardain, and their replica of the Enterprise, I can appreciate a few less stressful missions.
True, Captain. As long as you do not lower your guard, there is always the potential for danger. The array appears to be in similar condition to the others we have seen.
This is definitely the kind of place you want to be from, not heading to.
The difference between this place and hell is flames.
You overlook one other difference, Mr. Johns. As your author Mark Twain said, heaven for the climate, hell for the company.
Good enough. Alright, let's go back and use the look function on these guys, and then probably head into the building then.
In sharp contrast to the surrounding stones, the array glitters unblemished by the surroundings. The control mechanism for the array. Unlike the rocks surrounding it, the sensor array dish looks fairly new. The control mechanism for the array.
Alright, I think we're done here now. Oh, actually, one other thing we can do. Let's look at this.
Captain, is that what hell's like? Captain, is that what hell's like?
Ensign Johns appears bored by the desolate surroundings.
Ensign John seems to be, I guess not superstitious, religious, I guess, the best word. Keeps referencing hell and heaven.
Well, I have to hand it to whoever built this place. All this equipment looks brand new and in good repair.
Let's hope the Enterprise looks this good when it's this old.
We should be very careful about how we proceed, Captain. I have a strange feeling that evil is lurking nearby.
Evil, Ensign?
Something that wants to imperil our souls, sir. We must avoid that at all costs.
Interesting equipment we have here.
A DNA synthesizer and replicator. This is one of the most advanced genetics facilities I have ever seen. How unusual.
How so, Spock?
Even visitors to this planet would leave behind a substantial number of artifacts. Sending only a genetics lab does not fit established archaeological patterns.
You know, a person could do serious research with a device like this. What an odd piece of equipment to find in a place like this.
I haven't seen equipment like this since I interned on Talara. Such equipment. In such a place.
A DNA synthesizer and replicator.
How so?
Even visitors.
Alright, so we got...
You know, a person could do...
Alright, so that's all repeat. So now let's actually look around.
A door leading to another room. A door leading to another room. A door leading to another room.
Captain, these doors protect the unit from debris when not in use.
Aside from minor differences in styling, this looks remarkably like a Tellarite 8000 DNA sequencer. Aside from minor differences in style,
Alright, so the computer is part of the unit.
if not for a thin covering of red dust, you would assume this DNA replicator had just been unboxed and set up. If not for a thin covering of...
That's considered one unit.
Captain, these doors protect the unit from debris when not in use.
This appears to be a patch of rust and dust that has accumulated on the machine's surface.
Dr. Leonard McCoy smiles as he is confronted with a familiar environment. James T. Kirk, as always, appears fit, alert, and ready for the challenges of the universe. Ensign Johns wears his surprise at the surroundings transparently on his face. Spock raises an eyebrow as he surveys the room.
Alright, tricorder readings, Mr. Spock.
There are life form readings just to the east and west of this room.
Okay.
There are life form readings. This DNA sequencer appears to be nearly 50,000 years old, yet it has not broken down and appears to be fully powered. Aside from some dust and dirt and a small chemical deposit on the intake nozzle, this DNA replicator appears to be in the same condition that it was 50,000 years ago. Aside from...
Okay, so...
This DNA sequence...
Tell me more about this chemical deposit.
Readings indicate that along with oxidation and dust, there is some organic residue in the crust-like buildup.
Alright, Bones. Organic residue. Let's hear it.
I'm just a simple country doctor, not a magician. There are some things I just can't fix.
Okay. So he's not giving us any readings. McCoy.
The DNA replicator looks as though it's never been used. I'd recommend having Ensign Johns operate the machine if it's needed. This looks like a Tellarite 8000. Do you think Tellarites were here and have duplicated the design?
Unlikely, Doctor. But that is an interesting observation.
It's fairly simple to operate. You input samples into the sequencer and you can combine with the replicator. Using the replicator is the hard part of the operation.
Captain, we have to run a set of source samples through the sequencer before I can make a composite sample with the replicator. Wow, this is almost identical to an 8000 sequencer. Cutting-edge Federation technology. Just input a sample, and the sequencer analyzes it so it can be spliced or altered on the genetic level with the replicator.
Spock, do you have any?
Captain, Ensign Johns would be the ideal person to Captain.
He's just telling me to use him, which we already did. Let's see if we can't clean this crap off. Ooh.
A unique use of a phaser, but adequate for removing the deposits from the apparatus.
Alright, well, let's introduce ourselves to the life forms then.
Greetings, gentle beings, and welcome. I am Azra of the Omegan people. You are the salvation we have long sought. Thank you for answering our summons.
An angel!
Actually, it is the projected image of an angel, Mr. Johns.
Jim, somewhere in that machine behind the portal are single-cell organisms. They have a healthy metabolism and long lifespan, but an extremely low rate of reproduction.
So where's the emergency? Greetings, I am James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. What can we do for you? All right, I know you're just a projection. Let's speak with your real masters. So where's the emergency? Greetings, I am James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. What can we do for you?
I am Azra of the Omegan people, an ancient and venerable race which labors to prevent the domination of this world by the forces of darkness. We require you to expunge this place of our mortal enemies.
Captain, the most worthwhile purpose in life is to fight against the forces of darkness. We must help him.
Enemies? This world is so barren that all the life on it is located right here. If you have mortal enemies, we've not seen them. Who are you talking about?
Johns, we're gonna have a talk, I
Our
think.
Prime Directive prohibits us from taking part in wars on one side or the other. It would be seen as intervention. We are willing to negotiate a compromise. You will forgive me if I don't fall for a pretty face. I'm not about to expunge anyone. And I will take no action until I've heard both sides of the story. And our Prime Directive prohibits us from taking part in wars on one side or the other. It would be seen as intervention. We are willing to negotiate a compromise.
You imperil your soul by conversing with the enemy, that sugar-tongued Vizsla. I cannot protect you, but I do not imagine I can dissuade you either. Go, do what you must. I do not have that much time, but will be here if you seek to comply with my request.
Alright, let's have a look around.
A large alien computer. The thick glass window and the light coming from it make it difficult to see beyond it, though you get the impression of a living plasma swirling behind it. The wall slot is made of surgical steel, yet it is padded as if ready to receive a fragile vessel or container.
Captain, if this device were to produce a sample of the Omegan genetic material, we would receive it from this output slot.
The computer console has a conventional keyboard which is covered by odd symbols you do not immediately recognize. A large dry room. The huge ancient stones remind you of the buildings in Machu Picchu, Peru. Whoever built this, built it to last. Dr. Leonard McCoy looks intrigued by this new area to explore. James T. Kirk scrutinizes the room, his thoughts rushing along at breakneck pace. Spock's face displays no emotions. Ensign Johns looks around, wondering how to put his genetic skills to use.
This reminds me of the first time I saw them cloning Amoslovs at the Academy. It seemed like magic at the time. The fetuses growing into embryos, then developing into infants.
Life is a miracle, Captain.
This device contains genetic soup, Jim. Amino acids, proteins, the stuff of life itself.
This machine is a genetic bank, Captain. I suspect that the projection acts as a fail-safe mechanism that will surrender samples of the genetic code for sequencing and replication when the mechanism is willing.
Interesting.
We need to do everything we can to preserve the lives of these angelic creatures.
They're single-celled life forms, Ensign. They don't have the ability to do any of this. This is all past of some kind. A program, a simulation. I don't quite know.
The enclosure behind this porthole is teeming with life. Billions and billions of creatures. There's something wrong with the piece of his genetic code that controls reproduction. I've never seen such a low reproductive rate in an organism that's this simple.
Energy levels behind this glass are more than sufficient for having powered the distress signal we received.
Alright, continue your sensor readings, Mr. Spock.
This casing is constructed from a uranium alloy and contains computer equipment, an image projector controlled from the keyboard, a communications relay, a genetic bank behind that porthole, and a slot with which to take samples from the genetic bank. The computer is quite sophisticated, Captain, with encoded engrams similar to Dr. Daystrom's M5 computer program, which would indicate artificial intelligence. The computer is functional, but I detect no connection between the keyboard and the machine itself. Apparently, it was designed this way.
Mr. Spock, see if you can bring Azra.
I will now reactivate Azra, Captain.
There we go.
The golden projection gives you a clear view of a lithe, sprightly figure of great beauty. Compassionate intelligence shines from its wide eyes.
Alright, sensor readings.
This projection is being cycled at 1,000 frames a second, which suggests the equipment was designed to function in the presence of a race that has a sharper visual acuity than the human or Vulcan races.
And McCoy, I presume you're not going to pick anything up?
Whatever he is, he's not alive. I get no readings at all from him.
Alright, let's go see what that other life form's about then. Such creepy music.
I welcome you, otherworlders. I beseech you, save us from that which seeks our destruction.
How fitting for a devil to appear on a world that looks like hell.
Enough of that, Mr. Johns. This is just another xenobiological entity.
Correction, Doctor. This is a projection of a xenobiological entity.
Jim, the only life form readings are within that machine behind the portal. Single-cell organisms with an extremely high reproductive rate, but a very poor metabolism and an extremely short lifespan.
Hey, I wouldn't say he looks like a devil. He certainly looks like a creature that probably wouldn't look out of place in Doom with his little tentacle hands and whatnot, but...
The monstrous projection towers over you with viscous bodily fluids oozing from sores and coagulating in long, putrid streamers. In its swollen, pus-ridden, piggish eyes, you see fear mixed with cunning. Dr. Leonard McCoy looks intrigued by this new area to explore. James T. Kirk scrutinizes the room, his thoughts rushing along at breakneck pace. Ensign Johns appears horrified by the apparition that manifests in this room. Spock's face betrays no emotions.
Yeah, we're gonna have a talk with Johns. Religion is good and all, but now it's getting in the way of his duties here. Alright, tricorder readings, Mr. Spock.
This projection is being cycled at 1,000 frames a second, which suggests the equipment was designed to function in the presence of a race that has a sharper visual acuity than the human or Vulcan races. Nothing unusual.
Alright, so look at this computer then.
Nothing unusual about that object, Captain. Nothing.
I guess we only get that once.
The computer is functional, but I detect no connection between the keyboard and the machine itself. Apparently, it was designed this way. There is power going into these circuits, Captain, making it capable of functioning. Energy levels behind this glass are more than sufficient for having powered the distress signal we received.
Alright, McCoy, what does your tricorder pick up?
The glass-lined enclosure beyond this porthole is teeming with life. Literally billions and billions of creatures reside herein. The genetic pattern seems unusually stunted. It's almost as though something's missing. Whatever he is, he's not alive. I get no readings at all from him.
Alright, thoughts everyone?
I can't say that I'll nominate this place for viewing in the Federation's architectural archives.
How come I always come to the barren planets, Jim?
This place feels evil, sir. I hope we don't have to stay here very long.
This machine is a genetic bank, Captain. I suspect that the projection acts as a fail-safe mechanism that will surrender samples of the genetic code for sequencing and replication when the mechanism is willing.
A large dry room. The huge ancient stones remind you of the buildings in Machu Picchu, Peru. Whoever built this, built it to last.
Alright, let's talk to the Visnar here.
Greetings, I am James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. What can we do for you? So, when do the wicked witches and goblins show up? Your emergency beacon and statement lead me to believe you see more of an emergency than exists here. Greetings, I am James T. Kirk of the USS Enterprise. What can we do for you?
I am Visner of the Alphen people. Our race possessed this world and thrived here until the invasion by the forces of light. We are locked in a death struggle with them, for they desire our destruction. Do you aid them?
No, we do not aid them. Wars and destruction are not things we value, Visner. Our prime directive prevents us from interfering in internal struggles, but at the request of all parties, we might negotiate a compromise. Forgive me, but I find that claim insupportable. This world, while grim, hardly looks like a battleground. Who is trying to destroy it? Wars and destruction are not things we value, Visner. Our prime directive prevents us from interfering in internal struggles, but at the request of all parties, we might negotiate a compromise.
You open yourself to confusion in speaking with Azra, but it is understandable that you want to hear his side before acting. My assessment of you suggests that most of you will fight the clouding of logic and will see through Azra's deception. Please report to me your success.
Why wait? We've already talked to Azra.
It surprises me that you managed to survive listening to his warped theology. Yours must be a patient life form.
Frankly, Visner, Azra is certainly committed to his cause, but hardly the blood-mad fanatic you describe him to be. Warped theology. It is true they differ greatly from you, but your worldviews are based on common beliefs. You see things from different perspectives, that's all. Frankly, Visner, Azra is certainly committed to it. Warped theology. It is true they differ greatly from you, but your worldviews are based on common beliefs. You see things from different perspectives, that's all.
Are you utterly ungrounded in logic? They are creatures of superstition. They invaded our world, then sought to drive us from it. How can you suggest we are anything alike?
You question my grounding in logic, but you don't apply logic to an examination of Alphan beliefs. Aren't they concerned with the same things you are? You're supposed to be the reasonable one. Your facts can't be very persuasive if you aren't willing to try and find common ground. You said they usurped your place in the world, which suggests prior ownership by you. What evidence do you have to support that concept?
We know we came first because they invaded us. An invasion suggests they came to take away that which we possessed. Clearly you can see that.
How do you know they didn't exist on this world before you encountered them?
Do you further suppose they came first and we invaded them?
I see there are only single-celled organisms here, each with a defect. Perhaps at one time, the Alpha and Omega life forms were united. A strong, viable species that became divided. Only by reuniting can you hope to survive, and only through mutual cooperation and our help can you reunite.
Captain, this thing is evil. We can't unite them.
Your position is unassailable and points out the one and only purpose for our races. Thank you, Captain Kirk, for making me see that. Yes, I desire your help for my people. Help us.
Oh, that was easy.
I can't say that I'll nominate this.
How come
Updated thoughts?
This place
Nope. Sent to readings, everyone.
This colony of creatures appears viable for the short term.
Boy, these Alphans are healthy little beggars. They're multiplying at a phenomenal rate.
The dark sample seems more filled with corruption than it does any wholesome living creatures.
Well, I guess we'll just take that with us.
You take the alpha sample, which feels cold to the touch. Ensign Johns seems as emotionless as Spock.
So he does update when there's a creature in the room. So let's go back to the Omegans, they were, and Azra, and try to convince him to give up his sample. Guess we're supposed to combine them. So some alien came here, and I don't know if they made these organisms or if they just took organisms that were naturally occurring here, and then they separated them into two separate colonies and deprived them of some of their genetics, I guess you could say.
Ensign Johns appears transfixed by the apparition that manifests in this room.
And they set these AIs up to represent them, because, I mean, obviously they aren't really battling. They're in two separate machines, you know, several feet away from each other. They're contained. They can't battle. So this seems to be some sort of test, like, was it the second episode, I think, where there was that world where the aliens set up that facility to basically make all the Balcosians. Yeah, to make the Balcosians aggressive. And then we got a message that that was some sort of test, so maybe this is a continuation of that? In any case, time to talk.
Was it not as I said it would be? Are not the Alphans unfeeling, uncaring beings, unworthy of life? Did they tell you their lies?
Foul lies? Their position contradicts yours, but there are similarities. You dwell on your differences so much, you just can't see them. Frankly, Azra Visner is quite rational and makes your impassioned pleas for genocide sound psychotic. For a being of goodness, you're rather bloodthirsty. Maybe you should try practicing what you preach. Foul lies? Their position contradicts yours, but there are similarities. You dwell on your differences so much, you just can't see them.
Captain, they're as different as angels and demons.
Similarities? They are beings of shadow. They mock our perfection. They are our antithesis, created after we were to destroy us and our potential for good.
You repeatedly proclaim yourself good and suggest you are morally superior to the Alphans. Why don't you act like it? If you're so perfect, how come you need our help? You said they were created after you were. How do you know that?
We know we came first because that is what our sacred scriptures tell us. In the light we were born and commanded to shun that which dwells in darkness. This clearly tells us that we came first. Surely you can see that. Or is it that you have some other interpretation of the event that birthed the Omegans?
Does your sacred scriptures explicitly say that no beings were created before you?
Dare you suggest they came first?
Let's see what we've got. 2 single-celled organisms, each incapable of survival on their own. One lives in light, the other lives in darkness. Each must live a limited and unstable life without the other.
Captain, do you know what you're doing?
Allow us to unite you again. Your combined strengths will make you a viable entity again.
The persuasiveness of your arguments has opened for me a door through which I spy a future and a truth that I have long denied. You are correct. Perhaps being only half of a whole, I could not see the solution. Yes, I desire your help for my people. Help us.
Oh, that was a quick and easy transformation from bloodthirsty genocidal maniac to, oh yeah, just combine me with the thing I've been advocating, be genocided.
The wall slot is made of looking more closely, you find a dish which contains the genetic sample, which can be easily detached from the machine. The glowing light coming from the sample dish tells you that the colony is thriving.
Tricorder reading, Spock and McCoy.
This colony of creatures appears viable for the short term.
These Omegans are incredible. They metabolize almost everything, which explains how they give off that glow.
The sample dish feels warm to the touch.
We'll figure one's cold, one's warm.
Through the smoke glass of the sample dish, you can see virtually nothing, but then you have microscopic life in there, so that is not unusual. The glowing light coming from the sample dish tells you that the colony is thriving.
Nothing unusual about that object, Captain.
See if we get any more readings.
Nothing unusual about that object, Captain.
McCoy, does your medical tricorder?
Do you really expect me to analyze this, Jim?
Yes.
Do you really expect me to...
Can we do it like this?
I don't understand.
McCoy, this is your specialty, your field.
I failed to...
Okay, well, in any case, we got what we wanted. So, I guess it's, we're gonna have to have a talk with Mr. Johns after this mission is over, I think, but for now... I don't know why this room takes so long to load. But, for now, why don't we, Mr. Johns, go and sequence these samples.
I don't know why, but I could not get a good sampling.
Mr. Johns, are you certain that you can't get that sample sequenced?
I'll try it again, Captain. Another failure. I'll try again, if that's what you want.
How unusual. Maybe I should have a go at this problem.
I don't think you'll be able to help, Doctor.
Look, Ensign, you've already crossed the line between incompetence and insubordination. I'm trying to help save your career.
I appreciate your effort, but you can't help me.
Ensign, let Dr. McCoy try that troublesome sequence.
I can do the job, sir, if I can have some peace and quiet here.
Mr. Johns, I think I'm getting a clear picture here of your difficulties. Do you realize that insubordination is an offense punishable by a court-martial? It looks to me that you're deliberately trying to mislead us. That's not a good career move. Calm down, Ensign. No one is criticizing you. I just need answers. Mr. Johns, calm down, Ensign. No one is criticizing you. I just need answers.
I appreciate the offer, Captain, but I know what's right and wrong here, so I don't need your help.
Ensign, I appreciate your situation, but this is not the time for philosophy. You have a job to do. Ensign, you are here as a genetic engineer, not as a philosopher. I expect my orders to be obeyed, and if you have a problem with them, I don't expect to be deliberately misled. I could really use a Tellarite security officer right now. Ensign, I appreciate your situation, but this is not the time for philosophy. You have a job to do. Ensign, you are here as a genetic engineer, not as a philosopher. I expect my orders to be obeyed, and if you have a problem with them, I don't expect to be deliberately misled.
These are both
Ensign,
really good.
I appreciate your situation, but this is not the time for philosophy. You have a job to do. Ensign, you are here as a... Ensign.
You don't understand, Captain. Look at the Alphans and look at the Omegans. There's so much evil in the universe. You're asking me to destroy a race of good and beauty by mixing their genetics with something ugly, something evil. I can't do it.
Ensign, these Alphans and Omegans are single-celled creatures. Those projections are only constructs. Examine them yourself. Could their DNA produce creatures like Azra and Visner? I am asking you to do nothing of the kind, Ensign. You believe in the struggle of good against evil, and I respect that. But the application of your philosophical perspective is misplaced here. The Alphans and Omegans are single-celled creatures. They are no more capable of good or evil than a tribble. Can't you see that? Ensign, I think you're confusing things. The Alphans and Omegans are single-celled creatures. While the projections may have seemed sophisticated and human, they are constructs. You can look at the sequence and tell what you have there for DNA could never produce such a creature, can't you? Ensign, I think you're confused.
Single cells. You're right. I've been a real idiot. I suppose I should take a refresher course in Aesop.
It wouldn't hurt. Some of the wisest people in history have written for children.
Never judge an input card by its label. I guess that was the trap I fell into and kept me from doing my job and made me deceive my captain.
If it's any consolation, you're not very good at deception, Ensign.
Thank you, sir. I hope you'll give me a chance to correct my mistakes. Do you think we're really meant to combine the two races?
You've programmed the sequences. You can tell whether they're compatible.
Sir, the sequencer indicates that they need to be combined for their continual survival. But how did you know?
I listened to Dr. McCoy. It seemed the logical conclusion, given the evidence.
Thank you, Captain.
Alright, Johns, we're going to have a longer talk when we get back to the Enterprise, but until then, let's try this one more time.
The alpha sample is sequenced, sir. This sample sequence is like a dream.
I was unaware you had studied genetics at the Academy, Captain.
Alright.
Captain, we have to run a set of source samples through the sequencer before I can make a composite sample with the replicator.
Oh, so we gotta send you back there then?
The two samples have joined together as easily as if they had once been a whole and had been separated before.
Any race that had this technology 50,000 years ago could possibly have been able to perform such a dissection and kept both halves alive.
Captain, with the samples sequenced together, I'm ready to use the replicator to produce a sample with the combined genetic data.
Alright, well then do it.
I am producing a new culture, Captain. Captain, the genetic sequence is still stored in the computer. If we need another sample, the replicator can generate it.
Alright, let's look at this sample then.
If not for a thin covering of red,
Nope, I'm on.
a weak greenish glow comes from this dish.
Alright, tricorder readings, Mr. Spock.
This colony of creatures appears viable for the long term. Quite vital and thriving.
McCoy, your tricorder readings, please.
These combined creatures have a triangular structure. These gammons have the energy efficiency of the Omegans and the reproductive rate of the Alphans.
Boy, I need you to...
This looks like a Tellarite.
Unlike
This looks like
Alright, well, we'll just exit and re-enter and then pick it up. Looks like there might be like one pixel there that we could grab, but I'm not gonna. Alright. There we go. Why don't we pick that up?
I officially christen this life form the Gammons.
A weak greenish glow comes from this dish.
Can we get any more tricorder rings on it?
This colony of creatures appears viable for the long term, quite vital and thriving.
McCoy, you got anything further to say?
These combined creatures have a triangle.
Okay, same thing as before, so... You know, we haven't seen what's in this room yet, so let's go in there. Alright, let's have a look around.
A large dry room. The huge ancient stones remind you of the buildings in Machu Picchu, Peru. Whoever built this, built it to last. A large alien computer. The computer console appears normal though non-functional. A viewing port into the genetic holding tank. It looks exactly like the in-out access port at a genetic research facility. James T. Kirk, as always, appears fit, alert, and ready for the challenges of the universe. Ensign Johns wears his surprise at the surroundings transparently on his face. Spock raises an eyebrow as he surveys the room. Dr. Leonard McCoy smiles as he is confronted with a familiar environment.
Thoughts, everyone, before we finish this?
Why do I have a feeling that this mission will be resolved in this room?
Divine inspiration, Captain?
I won't discount it, Ensign.
And...
Do you have any idea what this machine does, Spock?
It looks like a containment unit for an artificially created genetic construct. My tricorder indicates the device contains a nutrient replicator that could last for thousands of centuries. I would speculate this would nursemaid the genes until it has evolved into a higher form of life and is ready for release on the planet's surface.
Interesting.
This place doesn't feel evil, Captain.
Well, at least he's changed his tune.
Well, this place seems peaceful enough.
Tricorder readings, Mr. Spock.
Nothing.
Okay, nothing on the computer. How about the keyboard?
The computer is functional, but I detect no connection between the keyboard and the machine itself. Apparently, it was designed this way.
Tell me more about the slot.
There is power going into these circuits, Captain, making it capable of functioning. Nothing unusual about that object, Captain.
Alright, McCoy, can you analyze the tank there?
I'm just a simple...
Okay, not yet. Alright, so, why don't you pop that in?
Well, Jim, it doesn't look like it does anything. Oh, I guess I spoke too soon. It took it in. It looks as if the colony is getting a foothold in there.
Life energy levels are spiking. They're building to a level sufficient for sending out a signal 100 times stronger than the one that brought us here, Captain.
The Gammon sample appears to be thriving in this environment.
Thank you for your hard work. You have fulfilled the design for which we were created. I am authorized to tell you the true nature of this planet and those who brought you here. All you need do is ask.
Ah! It is a test. Or something. Alright, well, let's look at him.
Beautiful and quite lifelike, the three-dimensional projection appears to be a blend of Alphan and Omegan traits. Ensign Johns wears his surprise at the surroundings transparently on his face.
I guess he's got no reaction to this guy then.
This projection is being cycled at...
Okay, same thing as the other holograms.
Whatever he is.
Same thing. Alright, let's talk to him then.
Thank you, Captain, for your aid in constituting my people and in the unexpected necessary realignment of our communications array. You have performed admirably. Of the 16 stations reporting at this point, there have been 50% fatalities, 30% other failures, and only 20% successes. One group got points for style.
Points for style? Is this some sort of game? Not another alien race with a superiority complex. Who are you this time? Your appreciation is welcome, but many questions remain unanswered. Who are you? Points for style? Your appreciation is welcome, but many questions remain unanswered. Who are you?
I am Sisissa, a projection of a synthesis of Azra and Visner. Clearly you know that the primitive life forms you have been dealing with are incapable of creating that in which you now stand. You will also note that the more demonic of the creatures displayed a passivity you did not expect, while the morally pure creature was aggressive and bloodthirsty.
The contradictions were noted and duly dealt with. I take it you were testing us on our ability to deal with disparate and contradictory inputs.
Yes, your reasoning ability was being tested, as well as your ability to adapt to new ideas when they conflict with deeply held beliefs and cultural customs. You passed quite admirably. The Brassica were impressed.
I'm not clear on who the Brassica are.
Captain, from this site, I can deduce various things about the Brassica. They are taller and more slender than we are. They are possessed of 3 fingers and a thumb on each hand. I suppose bilateral symmetry, and I know they possess greater visual acuity than humans. They visited this place well before humans had left the Cro-Magnon stage of development. And I note they have avoided detection by us, and presumably every other race in the universe, before they decided to send out signals to bring us to their bases.
Thank you, Mr. Spock.
And more you shall know as you continue on the quest. I wish you luck.
Kirk to Enterprise, Scotty, 4 to beam up.
Yeah, so this definitely seems like the same work of that we saw with the crap, I forgot.
Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end.
In this case, Bones, a new beginning. We were the midwives for the rebirth of a life form. 2 halves that have been made whole again. That's the way it was meant to be.
And let us hope that this is the end of Ensign John's prejudices.
We can all learn to stop judging people by appearances. Ensign Johns might have done well to remember the biblical representation of Lucifer, appearing in the guise of an angel of light.
You can never trust anybody, and people who look like pointy-eared hobgoblins are definitely at the bottom of the list.
It appears that Dr. McCoy did not learn the lesson of this mission either. Unfortunate, but not unexpected.
Fortunately, the Alphans and the Omegans learned philosophy and personal belief are not as easily divorced from logic as some would believe. We humans attain our greatest fulfillment when both of them are united.
Really, Captain?
Really. But I've had enough philosophy for one day. I'd rather worry about these Brassica and their cosmic quest.
Well, with me aboard, we're sure to get points for style.
Many questions remain unanswered, Captain.
And there's only one way to answer them.
Captain, message from Starfleet.
Bring it up, Lieutenant.
I've reviewed your report from your recent assignment, Captain, and have a few comments. I am very pleased with your performance. It was a perfect mission, Jim. Your reputation as Starfleet's best starship captain is secure. Kane out.
Ahead, Mr. Sulu. Warp Factor 5.
Leaving orbit. Increasing to Warp Factor 5.
Alright, so it seems like the Brassica are the ones who set up the test on Balcos 3 with the Balcosians, and then with those single-celled life forms, the Alphans and the Omegans. I'm surprised that Kirk and Spock and McCoy were all, we put them together like they were always meant to be. It's like they were together originally. We discovered they were dissected. This alien race is manipulating innocent life forms and then using them as like a test for other races, and in that regard, kind of abusing other life forms too. I mean, Kirk's possible response that you could have given them about, another life form with a superiority complex, that's kind of what it feels like we're dealing with right now. These do not seem to be benevolent creatures. But in any case, it looks like we are done for the moment. We'll have to chase down the Brassicans another time, but until then, let's see if
the Antares Rift.
How so,
Captain.
Don't want to get into that just yet. I just wanted to see if we would get any information here. Nope, nothing that was mentioned gives us any information, unfortunately. So I believe that concludes today's Voyages of the Enterprise. With that, thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for next time. We'll see you then.